Good morning. This is for your fourth week of July 2020, and I've got some really interesting stories this week, and a lot of them too. The first one that piqued my interest, California Utilities released a study showing that alone, solar does a really poor job at matching load. No surprise there, but targeting peak load. The effective load carrying capacity of solar with trackers is just between 6 and 7%, depending where you are in California, because it doesn't meet evening peak real well. But just add 4 hours of storage and suddenly you're at 99%. That's really bad news for peakers whose futures have definitely peaked. My second story, Microsoft blogged last week and updated its negative carbon strategy, through which it's A, going carbon neutral by mid-2020s, and B, going carbon negative by 2030, to account for all the emissions it has released since its founding. It started up a coalition with other big businesses like Nike, Starbucks, and Unilever to create a carbon roadmap for other corporations and a business plan as well. It's also investing $1 billion in innovative technology, with the first $50 million going to energy impact partners, which fund startups. And perhaps most interesting, it's issuing an RFP for approaches to, quote, source that carbon removal from a range of nature and technology-based solutions that are net negative. So it's going to be very interesting to see what Microsoft does there. Then the next story, renewables giant Nextera said it will propose a $65 million hydrogen project with Florida Power and Light to create hydrogen from clipped solar. Typically, panels are cheap, inverters are expensive. So you might have 100 megawatts of solar panels and only 70 megs of inverters, because most of the time you're not producing at your full 100 megawatts. But there are times you are, and that energy right now is clipped or wasted. So the idea is now you harvest that energy, turn it into hydrogen. Clip it good. And Morgan Stanley says the same thing can be done economically with wind farms in the Midwest and Texas. And that within the next 2 years, it will be cost effective to use that free, otherwise curtailed wind power, combine that with electrolyzers, and get cost effective hydrogen in some of the best wind markets. We'll see. Next story, data giant Switch announced a giga project in renewables, and part of that includes its just announced biggest behind-the-meter solar project in the world, with 127 megawatts of solar, 240 megawatt hours of battery storage. This eclipses anything anyone's done behind the meter. That company must have an awful lot of land, because we're talking square miles of solar there. Story number 6 of the week, I'm giving you 8, 2 for 1. Utility Alliant says it will be getting to net zero by 2050. That's good. Alliant doesn't know it yet, but it will eventually move that goal to 2040 or even closer to today. Just give them time and watch as the technology gets cheaper and companies get more courageous, which will give them the ability to move out further into traffic. Story number 7. In New York renewables, Governor Cuomo, has some courage, and he's taking no prisoners in the renewable space. His administration just released a solicitation for up to 2,500 megawatts of additional offshore wind and 1,500 megawatts of land-based renewables to meet their net carbon emissions targets. And oh yeah, story number 8. There was a $60 million bribery scandal at First Energy, where the company paid dark money to influence the referendum that gave coal and nukes some handsome subsidies. Looks like American Electric Power was involved with another $18 million. Utilities sometimes have a bit too much power. In First Energy's case, they've been poorly managed since, 2003 is when their bad management led to the widespread blackouts. And they don't seem to be getting any better. A complete cultural rip and replace would seem to be on order for that company. Anyway, you got a 2 for 1 this week. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.